Our focus is the impact of the fiscal cliff deal. Accountant Michael Bark and estate planning attorney Ido Walney offering insight for us this morning. Gentlemen, people have heard the term fiscal cliff probably more often than they would like to, and yet this issue is not going away. Just because a deal was struck, day after the first of the year, I should say, we still have a lot of issues that have to be addressed as we move through the next couple of months, don't we?
Go ahead, Mike. The next biggest thing you're going to see is the spending limit. And, right now there's a certain amount of debt that the country can have. And in order to go beyond that, Congress has to authorize that. So they're going to want to see spending cuts. I think the president is going to want to see more revenue enhancements to cut this deficit. So, as Ido will say, it's probably, this first deal is a bridge to get us to where we're probably ultimately going to get to.
So really, we're looking at maybe 3 different cliffs. And as Mike mentioned, the debt ceiling, it really has to be addressed probably, by the end of February or so, Ido?
I mean, if you listen to the people in Washington, they suggest that we've already actually gone past our debt ceiling limit, and now we're just finagling numbers in order to keep us going until an actual deal can be. And so it is a present concern for those people in Washington.
People sitting at home will say, well, that's Washington's problem. How could it affect people at home and their individual and family and business budgets as well if this is not dealt with?
Well, the issue is that while people think that Washington can simply just print money ad infinitum, it's simply not the case. There are bonds that we have issued, there are backings of the debt that we have, and the U.S. certainly doesn't want to default on any debt, because then that would lead to a cascade of all sorts of bad financial issues. And so if those things were to start happening, that would have a very, very real and present effect on inflation, things that very practically affect people on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Cost of items that you buy at the grocery store or so forth will go up dramatically?
Absolutely. I mean, we heard even at the end of the year last year about the milk cliff. There was some legislation that was going to expire in Washington that would have caused the price of dairy to double and triple in price. And actually that was addressed as part of the fiscal cliff resolution. But there are all sorts of things that I think are lying in the weeds that could have a very serious effect on people's day-to-day economies.
And Mike, Congress also has to deal with the spending issue, the spending cuts, about $100 billion in domestic and military spending. Really, they have to decide where those cuts are going to be made.
Exactly. And again, I think in order for them to get the spending cuts that they want, they're probably going to have to agree to a few more revenue enhancements. It could be something like the Buffett rule. It could be, increasing some rates here and there. So they're going to have to come to some type of meeting of the minds to get the spending and the deficit under control, or else you will see things like inflation at some point in this economy. And if you see inflation, if you see the cost of everything going up, then it's just less money out of your pocket.
Mike, you talk about revenue enhancements, the Buffett rule, basically taxing people more as we move forward.
Well, I think if you look at the American electorate right now, I think there's a lot of support that it's okay for anybody else's taxes to go up as long as it's not mine. So you can fixate something like the Buffett rule on a very small percentage of the people who are electing the president, and I think that's going to have some traction. And in fact, you see it's named the Buffett rule because of his support for it.
Congress has been passing these temporary resolutions to fund the government, and yet they really need to decide on a budget sooner than later.
Yeah, I don't think we've had an official budget go through Congress in at least 3 years. And so we get to a point where we have to set budgets. We all live by budgets. Mike and I are both business owners. We have budgets. But Congress apparently gets by without a budget. And it's time for them to figure out some of these numbers. Unless you figure out the totality of the problem that you've got, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to fix the problem.
The economy, guys, has been recovering, albeit slower than a lot of people had hoped. Is what we saw, the fiscal cliff deal, going to help speed things up or slow it down, that recovery down a bit?
In my opinion, I think we're going to see a very short-term slowdown. One, because you're taking that FICA tax back away from people, so they have less disposable income. You're also seeing some of the Affordable Care Act provisions take place this year. So if you've got in your health insurance a premium renewal, chances are it's gone up significantly, and that's money straight out of your pocket that hasn't added any value to you. So that's less money you have to spend somewhere else.
Exactly. Affordable Care Act, we're talking about health care reform, Obamacare, I guess.
Correct.
I understand.
And I think it's worth noting that with the fiscal cliff deal that was passed, this was 85 or 90% of the original Bush tax cuts from 2001. So actually what was passed, while there are some fairly significant changes, isn't a very radical change to what we had had before. And so I think there will be some slowdown simply because some rates did go up. There was more being taken out of me than put back in. But for the most part, I'm of the opinion it at best is going to be a push.
Any surprise to Wall Street's reaction to all of this since the first of the year?
I think Wall Street likes certainty, and now they know what the rules are going to be, I think, going forward to some extent. So it gives investors some confidence, that they know what they're dealing with.
There was a lot of uncertainty in 2012, and yet the markets performed rather well.
I think everybody expected a deal to come at some point. Again, I was focused on this. I was almost on a daily basis checking to see what was going on in Washington, and I was of the opinion that we would eventually go over the cliff like we did, but that some sort of resolution would come. And Wall Street has very good insights with those sorts of things. They have very well-placed ears, and they knew that at some point some sort of deal would come through, and on January 1st we did get a deal. Well,
it's a complex topic, guys, and I appreciate you sorting things out for us and providing some insight as to what the impact is for people at home, families, businesses, and individuals as well. Ido Walny, Mike Bark, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
All right.